Okay, so the topic of the homework this week, it was a quote from Lung Pa Thun from the book Crossing the Stream, or Kam Kasa. In the Thai version, it's page 26. The quote goes as follows. The practice of cultivating Vipassana requires that whatever you contemplate must be according to the saccadhamma, which means the absolute truth. We must assume as close to the truth as possible. So the important part here, a lot of people who answered this question focused on the word saccadhamma, which means absolute truth. So they explained the different concepts of impermanence or suffering, which was good. However, for this particular example, the trigger phrase, the phrase that's important is, we must assume as close to the truth as possible. This refers to even the word extrapolate. You get an example, you extrapolate what it could be. You look at this, and then you assume that this is the way it's going to be. You build off of this assumption. Now, there's many examples that would work.
When I was growing up, my mom and dad would sometimes really fight a lot and get at each other. And I don't know, I always thought that was just kind of part of being married, and I thought that, well, getting married is like a natural thing, everyone does it, it's good to have a companion, you want to have kids and all this stuff. But I noticed over the years, like, yeah, they would fight a lot, and it was a little weird, but I never really thought anything of it. Years later, I lived with a girlfriend, and all of a sudden I realized, like, oh wow, that's what living with someone is. That's what being with someone is. Like, they're in your face all the time. You don't get a rest. So if you're fighting, you don't have a minute. There's nowhere you can go. There's no, I'm going home for a while, I'll see you later. You're like there, and it's raw, and it just hit me all at once. Like, that's what marriage is. Even though I've never been married, living with a girl approximated that for me, and I understood what it was.
I always look up to my boss, right? He has a team. He's a team lead. He has a team, and I thought that, that's where I want to be in the future for my career. But one day, he wasn't there. My coworker's not there, so just me and another friend, and there's a problem that we need to fix it by the end of the day. So turns out that everyone came to me, expect me to finish the work by the end of the day, and I was so tired. I was under a lot of pressure, and I didn't have lunch that day. So and then that moment I feel like, oh, this is how it feels to have people come to you, expect that things to be done on time. Now I kind of understand the lead of my team leader, how he's gonna feel.
Okay, so when I first came to the temple, I was still practicing meditation, and I was told that meditation makes people numb, and I had no idea what it means. But I tried to understand it, but I couldn't understand what it means, like makes you numb. I thought it was supposed to make you feel much more aware. And then fast forward like couple months after that, I was talking to my mom, and she was complaining to me how she got a fight with my brother again and again, and in the end she said that, well, what can I do? Life is indeed suffering, right? And at that very moment, it just hit me. It was like, oh wow, that's what numbed means, and I finally understand what it means.
So okay, for my example is when I watch the TV, about married couple. It's a comedy TV, so I laugh, whenever they fight, even for like small things. So I laugh, but then after a while, I get to think like, no, it's actually happened to me in my own life. I'm married, I have a wife, and one perfect example for me is when cutting a tomato. Like we cook together, and then my wife wants the cut on the tomato to be small as small as possible, while I am a guy, I just want everything to be fast, so I just cut everything like bigger chunk, and we fight just over that. Like it's just small silly thing, but after I realized that it's actually happened and it sucks. It's not even funny. So after I watched again that show about married couple doing fighting over small things, it's it's not funny. It's actually happening, and it's not like really a good feeling if someone laughs about it too.
So for example, as a monk, we might not be able to get married or have kids. So how can we know what it's like to have kids? How can we know what it's like to get married? And if we're unable to do this or learn this, what we're going to have to do is either we have to leave the monkhood and get married, and then learn how it is, and then maybe try to come back. It might be too late then. Or we might have to have kids, which is not appropriate either. So how can a monk or someone in a position that you have no possible way of learning this, how can we learn it? Well, there's many different ways. For example, last year, one of the students had an issue. She had a baby and she was unable to care for her baby herself. So she asked the temple, Mayo and myself and Mampinat and the people of the temple to help her. So twice a week, we raised a month-and-a-half-old baby. Through this process, we got to extrapolate, this is not my son, this is not my baby, nor is it my responsibility. But we can extrapolate from the little things, we can assume from the little things, such as what? Well, at first when the baby pooped in his diapers, we're like, so what? It's not my problem. I don't care. Or you do it. Or you do it. Let someone else do it. But then after a while, after we got used to him and after we started to fall in love with him and get used to it, it started to become something that we were proud to do. I'll do it. I know how to change a diaper now. I know how to do it. I'll take care of it. And you even show off to people that, yeah, I changed the diaper yesterday. It was my first one. You get proud of it. Wow, is that what it feels like to be a parent of a newborn? You start to feel proud of the little things that you learn. You start to feel proud of the little things that you accomplish. And it's because of how much you love them. It's the same idea that, oh, so if I were to actually be the parent, would it be something similar to this? So this is called assuming as close to the truth as possible. When I'm with that boy, in my mind, I pretend he's mine. I pretend he's mine. I say that he's mine, and I treat him like he's mine. That way I get to know every feeling there is that comes from being a father or a mother. Just from that 1 week, that 2 days a week. It's enough to get a small sample size of what it's like to actually be a parent. Do I know everything? No way. But do I have more of an idea than I did before? Yes. Now, there was a situation that happened to a layperson that we know. Now, in this family, the mother is very successful. The father is a little more passive. Now, what happens is, for 30 years, the mom was more aggressive than the father, easy to say. And so the father kind of took a back seat, was not so loud or proud. He was very kind of timid. And the kids grew up and saw this. Now, the son in this house started dating this girl. And what happened was he had a good job, he had a car, had houses, had money. Everything was fine for him. He was considered successful. And what happened was his girlfriend at the time said one word to him and said, wow, the more I look at you, the more proud of you I am. Everything you do is so amazing. I see the potential in you, and I believe that one day you can achieve everything. I'd love to be there when that happens. Now, what happened was, this boy, this guy, listened to this. And when he listened to this, he contemplated back upon his parents. What happened to my parents? With my parents, mom was very strong, father was whatever, a regular guy. Mom tried to push him to his potential, and that's what caused the break in the family. So if that's the way it happened there, and right now, this person has potential, but hasn't reached it yet. The girl sees the potential, wants to push you there. Can you see how both situations are very, very similar? One is 30 years later, you have an unhappy family, you have an unhappy father, unhappy mother, no one's happy. But you're both happy now, but look at where that's leading. Will it happen 100%? No. But is there a big chance of it happening? Yes. Do you want to take that risk? And because of that extrapolation, that young man broke up with that girl. Not because she was bad or anything was wrong, it was because the defects in him did not match with what she had to offer. And because of that, he was able to see what was going to come, what was going to happen. Now, this is what we mean by we must assume as close to the truth as possible. There's so many things that we will never experience in this life. And because of that unknown, we have to be born again so that we can experience them. And that is why we keep becoming reborn. It's because of the avijja, or delusion. Or easily said, the stupidity, the unknown ignorance. We don't know, so we want to know. How do you know? Wait to experience it. So Luang Por Thun's technique, Mayil's technique that works amazingly, is this technique. We must assume as close to the truth as possible. Whatever you want to know, assume it. Mayil once told me a story that she went to the swimming pool and she saw someone who was really, really fat, like just really, really obese. What did she do? She assumed that if it was me, what would it be like? And she started to imagine in her mind with the assumption of what is this like. She assumed how it would be to walk with that much weight. She assumed how it would be to breathe and breathe hard, and the sweatiness and the smelliness, and how other people look at you, and how other people treat you, and the discrimination you must face. Through that, she was able to see the truth of what it would be like if she was that fat. Then she talked about how she went to, I think it was Disneyland, and saw a handicapped boy in a chair sitting with his head tilted, his hand in his raised, and just saliva dripping down his face. And same thing, instead of critiquing him, she imagined, what if that was me? This is assuming a truth of handicappedness. Now she looked at him and said, wow, look at that. Sometimes people will just leave you in line and they just go off and walk away and you're stuck in the chair, you can't go anywhere. What happens when I'm lonely? What happens when I'm this or that? How does it feel? What if I want to use the restroom? Then what? Who do I ask? How do I feel because of that? It's a contemplation that's an extrapolation from this. And each one of these that we do, what happens is that once you see the truth behind it, the suffering behind it, you don't want to come back and do it. And so you learn your lesson without actually having to experience it. That's the power and the beauty of practicing Vipassana, which means making yourself smarter. How do you do that? Well, use truths. Where do you find these truths? Because you don't know all of them, so where do you find them? You find them in the people around you. You find them in the situations around you, the news, the TV. And through that, you become wiser. And thus, that's how you contemplate Vipassana.
Like the boy that tilted like this, I have to sit down and do like this for hours and see how it's like. Or when I want to go to the bathroom and I cannot go, I just lay down on my bed when I have car accident and I have to wait till people walk by to get me up to the bathroom. I use that experience matched up with what I see out there together. That's I call assuming as close as possible. I have that feeling, a really close feeling. Like when I saw in the movie that the guy fall down the cliff and hurt, broken back and neck, and I have that experience. So I can put that together when I see it and what I have inside of me, put it together. That's called assume as close to the truth as possible. You see it and your own experience put together. When you're angry, you know how it feels. And right now, you're not angry. You saw other people's angry. And you can see that it's so ugly. You know, the way that person acts is so ugly. But you don't know how they feel at that point. Because right now, you're not mad. You're okay. But you try to recall that when you're mad, how you feel. Your head is light, right? And sometimes you can't even breathe, you know, and you can't even talk, you know. It's you know that how it feels. So you put together that picture that you see and that feeling, you put together. That's the technique that Luang Por Thun have, which is, I always say, is amazing. If you can't do that, you can't do that in every situation. You can assume as close as possible. Definitely, you can leave this world with no time. That's a very special technique. Because just now we're missing the part that you have to know that feeling yourself. If you don't know, you can find something else close to that, like you're hungry, you know, and or some feeling that you have there, and see outside you can put together, match it up. Yeah, and that is mean assume as close to the truth as possible. That way, you will know both feeling and acting.
So, the important point that Mayo wants us to emphasize is that it comes from the concept of yana tasana and tasana yan, which means to know and to experience, or to experience and to know. Now what happens is that when you try to extrapolate or assume the truth, a lot of times you don't actually know what the other person's thinking. You don't know exactly what they're feeling. You don't know exactly how their understanding is. So then you're kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck just guessing and guessing and guessing. And that's where you can get lost in fantasy. So instead of becoming a contemplation, a correct contemplation, it becomes a fantasy contemplation where I wonder if they feel this way, I wonder if they feel that way. So we don't know. However, this is the part where you have the concept of you see what they're doing, you see what they're experiencing, but you don't know how they feel. However, in this world, human beings have experienced most of the feelings out there. We've all experienced anger. We've all experienced pain. We've all experienced sadness and loss and jealousy, isolation, loneliness. And so when you see someone experiencing something that you're not experiencing right now, it's not hard for you to look back into your own personal journal, your own personal diary, and find the time when you were like that. Find the time when you see someone who's very angry because they got betrayed. Look for the time you got betrayed, when your girlfriend cheated on you, when your boss promised you a promotion and didn't give it to you. You have these things that are inside you that are similar to what this person's going through right now. So in order for you to fully understand and assume correctly, as close to the truth, you must use your own personal experiences as your baseline. Because without that, then it's not truth. It's just guessing. It's just assumptions. So through your own personal experience, that's how you can relate to what you see outside. And once you see that, that is how you can know for real how things will be. Sometimes you get the opportunity of getting the experience first. Well, then you compare it to what you've heard. Sometimes you hear first. Well, if you hear first, then you compare it to what you've experienced. With knowing and experiencing together, that generates true knowledge. Just knowing is not enough. Just experiencing is not enough. You need to have both together. The final result is easy to tell. The final result is when you have the experience and the knowledge, they come together and you understand it. Problem solved, no further thinking necessary. Like in the example of the father and mother who argue, and then the son who finally dates a girl and then realizes, oh, this is what it's like to be married. Problem solved. Like it's over. You know what it feels like. It's done. Or in the case where I want to be the boss, I want to be the boss, and then when you finally get to be do a position like the boss, this is what it feels like. The experience that you're experiencing plus the knowledge that you had before come together, I get it. Or in the case where, meditation, it makes you numb. Meditation makes you numb. You don't really get it. Until someone says, oh, I don't feel anything. And you see that, wow, this is what they said. This is what I experience. I get it. This is the final result of this practice. However, a lot of the times, you don't have a direct example. It's not always going to be, I want to be the boss, I get to be the boss, I learn what it's like to be the boss. My parents argue as a married couple, I date someone, we argue, I get it. It's not always that easy. It's not always that linear. So in those cases, what you have to do is, what the question says is, you must assume as close to the truth as possible. Now, Mayo gives examples such as if someone has a bad tooth and their tooth hurts a lot. I've never had trouble with my teeth, but what can I assume that's close to it? You have stomach aches, migraines. These are intense body pains. They're not teeth pains or tooth pains, but they're body pains, but they're still pains. That's close to the truth as possible. Or, like we were talking about earlier, if you're a guy and you've never experienced woman things, there are certain guy things or human things that are similar to women things. Not exact, but probably as close as we're going to get. Such as women having their menstrual cycle, men having diarrhea. It's not the same, but it's relatively as close as men are going to get. And it's a similar type of contemplation. Now, there was a story that we've told a lot of times where in Thailand, there was a girl who went to the bank. And when she came out from the bank, she saw that there was a car blocking her in. In Thailand, this is not a big deal because you just push the car and then you just leave. Because everyone leaves their car in neutral if they block someone in. That's the unspoken rule. Well, this person, for whatever reason, left the parking brake up. So this lady got mad, called us in America and asked, give me advice. I can't get over being mad. Well, we asked her, have you ever done this before? Never. I've never blocked someone in before. So how can I ever understand this then? Well, in that case, we made her change it. You've never blocked someone in, but what have you done that is similar to this? Well, what topic do you want to use? We used the topic of making people wait, making someone wait for you. So we asked her, have you ever made someone wait for you? Or have you ever wasted someone's time? And she immediately thought back to her house where a lot of the time she tells her family, okay, let's go. And when everyone gets in the car and they're waiting and they're ready to go, she's still checking the gas, checking the back door, the windows, making sure her makeup's on, making sure her kids' homeworks are done, everything's in their backpacks, the food's in the bags. She makes people wait. And when she gets to the car, she sees how her husband and her kids complain. You're so slow, Mom. Hurry up, Mom. Once she had that experience, she used that as her analogy to the situation that she had. Once she took that example that was not blocking someone in, but was wasting someone's time, she got it. So it's our job when we contemplate or when we try to be smarter or Vipassana is to either have something that's the same, lucky you, but if you don't, find something as similar as possible. It's the easiest and quickest way to learn. So when you say, someone cut you in line, someone cut you when you were driving, there's so many things that are similar. Cutting in line when you're driving a car, or even just interrupting someone when they're speaking. All these things are considered putting yourself in front of someone else, or someone putting themselves in front of you. Whether it's with a car, whether it's with a promotion, whether it's with the body standing in front of you, or even their words stopping you from talking. These are all things that can be considered interruptions. They can be interchangeable for each other in order for you to generate that experience, which goes back to the concept of as close to the truth as possible. This is what it means.